ladies and gentlemen, I think it's just gone past 9 o'clock on my clock, and I would like us to start the meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. I think I see in terms of the honorable members, Mr. Davids, I see Honorable Bosman. Is there any other honorable member who's in attendance?
Chairperson, good morning. Good morning, honorable members and stakeholders. Chair, yes. Honorable van der Westhuizen is in, Chairperson. Honorable van der Westhuizen is in.
No, okay.
And Honorable Bosman is in, Chairperson. Honorable Bosman is standing in for one of the members, Chair, because we've gotten apologies from members America, Maseko, and member Mkondlo, Chairperson.
No, excellent. Then that's fine. Just so I was not seeing the honorable van der Westhuizen there. I can see honorable members. Let me make use of the opportunity to start the meeting and welcome all of you that are in attendance. We are in a meeting of the Standing Committee of Public Accounts of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. The purpose of the meeting is to receive a presentation and hold discussion with the Department of Agriculture and the Auditor General regarding the resolution that we've taken during the time when we're looking at the annual reports of the Department of Agriculture. So in order for us to start, can I just give an opportunity to honorable members that are in attendance to please introduce themselves?
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson, Andrikus van der Westhuizen, member of the committee.
Thank you very much, honourable member.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, colleagues. Gillian Bosman, standing in for member Maseko.
Thank you very much, honourable Bosman. And Mr. David, you've indicated the apologies. Can you just quickly go through the apologies again?
Yes, Chairperson, thank you. It is apologies received from a member Derek America and member Maseko. They are in Sierra Leone with the speaker, Chair. And then we've got an apology from member Mkondlo. There's also an alternate but sit with us every week, Chair. She's in a meeting in Johannesburg, Chairperson. And I see that the Honourable Head of Department for Agriculture is in, Chairperson. The Auditor General is also in, Chair. From Ms. Adams to Ms. Callan, everyone is in, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then, Mr. David, honourable members, without any waste of time, what I'll do, I'm going to allow the department to introduce their delegation, and then after I will allow the Auditor General to introduce their delegation. After that, I will allow then a discussion and a presentation from the department, and if the AG also have prepared a presentation, I will allow that, and thereafter we will engage in discussion based on what has been presented and ask question or make comment thereon. Thank you very much. Doc?
Chair, thanks very much to you and good morning to you and the members. Again, we want to appreciate the opportunity to come this way and account. With me today is the Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Flores A. Sama, and the two Deputy Director General, Dr. Ilse Trautmann, as well as Mr. Darrell Jacobs. That is the team from the department for today, and we look forward to make the presentation and answer all the questions that the committee may have. Chair, with that said, I want to thank you and hand back to you.
Thanks very much, Doc. AG?
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable members, HOD and CFO and all of the officials. So, Chair, with me today, I've got Sangita Kellen. She is the business unit leader. So she will be driving all the discussions today, Chair. Supporting her will be Ashley Orkers, who's also part of this meeting. And then Ashik Ali, who was the senior manager on the specific audit before, is also here. And then I've also got Adil Blau, I see here, and Johan. And then also Thomas, that is part of the meeting. But Chair, unfortunately, I've got to excuse myself at about 22 due to another commitment. But Sangeeta Callan will then be taking the lead from our side then in terms of responding to any questions that the committee have. We haven't really prepared a presentation, Chair, because we did come to the committee previously when we had to do the detractions of the audit report and provide explanation. But we are more than willing to answer any questions as part of the conversation and discussion here today. So thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Ms. Adams, and thank you very much for the introduction of your delegation. Now, honorable members, as I've indicated that we will allow a presentation from the department as they've prepared a presentation, and also thereafter we'll engage in discussion or comments, and also just by way of introduction also to indicate that the purpose of the meeting really was after we've looked at the annual reports of the departments and also subsequent to the outcomes of the case that was between the department and the AG. We just felt that in order to avoid the recurrence of that nature, let us just have a discussion, and so that we can actually have a common understanding and maybe map a way forward regarding that. So, of course, I've always said that it's always unfortunate for when any members of the department or any departments of government actually take each other to court, because I always regard that as the last resort, and we should also always try and exercise all the intergovernmental relation processes that are there. But I think out of this also there might be also a few lessons as well we can learn, as I was actually going through the presentation that was sent to us yesterday. Can I hand over to the department?
Chair, thank you very much. With your permission, I'm going to ask my CFO to fly to the presentation and talk to it. Thanks.
Chair, thank you. If you can just give me a moment, I will fly it quickly. Chair, it looks rather funny at my side. How do you see it? Do you see a full page?
Yes.
Do you see a full page? Okay, that's excellent. Then
you can see the whole page of the content.
Okay, no, then yeah, because I've got some new Office, Microsoft Office on here, and this one surprised me because I see quite a few pages, but it's important that you see it. Chair, thanks. From my side, the content, we try in the content just to stick to what Resolution 15.3 asked. The content will refer to that 15.3.1 are the two judgments, the High Court judgment and the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment at 8 June 2020 and 4 October 2021, respectively. Chair, then we're looking at the reasons for qualifications of the audit opinions, which also are the facts of the dispute. And the facts of the judgment of the Western Cape High Court on 8 June. And then we have it in tabular format. And Chair, I think if we look at the two tables, it most probably summarizes exactly what we are talking about today. But I will just talk around those. Then the EXA and National Treasury's appeal, the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment also in tabular format. and the excess reason for qualification and internal control lapses impact on the material misstatements. Chair, those were the facts that was referred to in the resolution. So I'm going to the next page. Do you see facts of the judgment 8 June?
Yes.
Right. Okay, the history. It was an 18-month period where we were in disagreement with the EXA. We were forward and backwards. And I think on both sides, we worked very hard in trying to get to a solution. However, we could not get to that point. And then the EXA did actually issue, that was for the 16-17 financial year. They did issue their audit report where they qualified us. And then we saw, for that reason, that we had no other option really than to proceed, to go to court. Since the EXA is a Chapter 9 institution of the Constitution, the only way one can overturn, if you are convinced you can overturn a finding of theirs, is unfortunately by going to court. So that was not, the court was not a choice. The court was actually the only option. So we went to court, and by that time already 3 years were audited. In other words, the 16-17 became 17-18 and 18-19 were added. After the EXA has decided to proceed. That word appeal is the wrong word. It is actually they decided to proceed. And as I said, as they are Chapter 9 institution in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, the challenge had to be in a competent court of law. The National Treasury also issued a classification circular supporting the EXA's stance at the time. Chair, then on the next page, still on the judgment. So this is now the judgment by the High Court, not by the Supreme Court of Appeal, by the High Court. As for procedure, the court took into account the same funding mechanism over previous years resulted in clean audits. The court also held the principle of reliance, accountability, and rationality, which they say are constitutional principles that need to be stayed within. As far as the regulatory framework was concerned, the court confirmed that the PFMA required the ASB to set standards of GRAP, of the General Recognized Accounting Practice. The National Treasury is not empowered at the time. You will see this was challenged later on and turned over. But at the time, National Treasury is not empowered to set standards for GRAP itself, a power that was clearly conferred on the Accounting Standards Board. The MCS, or Modified Cash Standard, which was used as a guide to the departments, and therefore it was seen as a guide and not legally binding. Chair, the judgment continues. Let me just see whether I can move it. Are you still? We are now, yeah, I see we are on the same page. All that had been prescribed was that the department had to account on an MCS or modified cash basis, which the department has done. This is now the judgment, Chair. Other instruments of which the EXA relied on, such as the new ER or the economic reporting format and accounting manual for departments, were not prescribed in law and were found to be not to be legally binding. The court held the department's payment amount to unrequited. In other words, we were getting nothing in return for what we paid, and therefore it constituted transfers. Chair, the EXA's argument was that the transaction ought to have been classified as goods and services and not transfers, and that a principal-agent relationship existed between the department and the Serious Fruit Producers Trust, or DFPT, and Casidra. The court found that this was a collaborative relationship and not under instruction of the department. Chair, apparently I'm still on slide 4. Can you see now where I am on slide 5?
The judgment, facts of the judgment continued.
That's right. Okay, that's the one I'm on now. Chair, in the end, the court found that Wardgrow and DFPT and Casidra had a collaborative relationship and not under instruction of the department or being an agent of the department. Chair, then the last page in terms of the High Court judgment is the elements of agency were absent as there was no legal relationship with a third party, which because the third party had no right against the department. Insofar the EXA relied on controls exercised by the department, it was seen to be a PFMA prescript, specifically section 38 and more specifically, or in particular 38(1)J, that the department had to do in terms of its legal obligation. Chair, the court concluded that the MCS is not legally binding and that the EXA is misinterpreted and the National Treasury regulation. And the approach to a principal-agent relationship was incorrect in law. That was the finding of the court, Chair. So the EXA had erred in considering irrelevant considerations and ignoring relevant ones. And the court found that they materially misdirected themselves in law. Chair, then I'm getting to, let me see, okay, then I'm getting to the judgment in the table, and Chair, there all the principles I talked about now are on the left, and how the court found who was right and who was wrong. As you can see on all of them, by the High Court, it was found that the department was right in all. Chair, I think I can move, or because I also see this presentation as read. Chair, then we go to the National Treasury. The EXA decided to appeal. The EXA and National Treasury actually decided to appeal. The EXA's request for leave to appeal was granted. However, the National Treasury's one was not granted because they did not oppose in the case. So the EXA's appeal consisted of setting all the findings aside, and the EXA was granted leave to appeal, as I just said, and the Western Cape government decided to oppose the appeal. Chair, and then the EXA also submitted evidence which the department did not oppose to the Supreme Court of Appeal, that the Treasury instruction in terms of Section 76 of the PFMA that the MCS was lawful and binding in the absence of GRAP. So the department did not oppose that, Chair, and that led to the table saying the same then actually at the High Court judgment, except you will see there in the middle that the modified cash standard is not GRAP but is lawful in the absence of GRAP, but Treasury instruction as submitted in terms of Section 76 of the PFMA. Chair, so that one principle then was overturned by the Supreme Court of Appeal, but the rest were maintained. Chair, right, then the reasons for qualification, in other words, the facts of the dispute. The first finding, according to EXA, is that goods and services were incorrectly classified as transfers and subsidies. The department's review was still that it was unrequited payments, and the government unit did not receive anything of similar value directly in return. And you will see that is in inverted commas. In other words, that is a direct transfer copy from the document. Then we give some examples. The first example is that they settle black farmers. Nothing of any value back to the department. And the other one is supporting the people in terms of drought, is that suppliers of fodder are paid, but nothing of any value back to the department. Chair, my second last page. The second finding, according to the EXA, is that that the department did not disclose a principal-agent relationships from the 2017-18 financial statements onwards. And the department's view, again, is in terms of the MCS and its definition of a principal-agent arrangement, is a principal-agent arrangement results from a binding arrangement in which one entity, the agent, undertakes transactions with a third party on behalf and for the benefit of another entity, the principal. Now, if you look down at number 5 at the bottom, you will see all from the conditions from 1 to 4 above must be present in the PAA. In the department's relationship then with the two institutions, only 1 to 3 are present, and the transfer, and that's why it is not a principal-agent relationship. Chair, and then there were some questions on the material misstatements for 2021, and that actually goes before 2021 to 16-17. In other words, all 5 years, 2021 included, and the prior for annual reports were the result of an incorrect finding and not as confirmed by the 2 judgments. That's why there were, in the end, if you look at restated audit reports that were submitted to you by the AG, you will see that those are not appearing in any of the 5 audit reports anymore, so there were no material misstatements. So the replacement audit reports of all 5 years omitted these material statements. Chair, and then there was no impact on the predetermined objectives. The predetermined objectives you will see in all 5 years were not mentioned within the qualification. So there were no impact on them from where we were sitting. And the National Treasury has since 2021, in other words, last year's financial year, they've put a process in place with the EXA where disputes are to be settled, hopefully as far as possible, but we must always remember that the EXA remains a Chapter 9 institution, which they should be. In other words, if they remain convinced of their stance, they do not have to change. And if any department, anybody in government then wants to change it, they most probably still will have to go to court. But there is a more formal process now in place that is being it was arranged between National Treasury and the EXA. Chair, and that is the end of our presentation. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Summer. Thank you very much for that. I just want to, maybe before I can allow for discussion and comment, I'd like to give the if they have any responses or comments or issues that they would like to raise. But also, I have been informed that Honorable Cheko has on the Ukon.
Chairman, thanks a lot. Sure.
Okay. AG, Ms. Adam, before you leave, if are there any comments maybe you might want to make?
Thank you so much, Chair. I think from our side, we are covered. We will wait for further inputs then and questions from the members. As indicated, Chair, we did present them to the committee specifically relating to the traction of the the audit report and the processes that was underway. So we will then respond to any questions. But I think, Chair, as you've indicated, the key conversation is about going forward and what are those mechanisms that we put in place so that we don't find ourselves in this position. One of the things that I just wanted to mention, because it was also very key in the judgment, because one of the things I think that came from the previous judgment was to indicate from an administrative rights in terms of a PAJA application, certain roles and responsibility towards the AG. And that specific one was also clarified in the actual appeal that we did. So that was the second thing that actually also went into the AG's favour. So that's the other thing I just wanted to put on the table, Chair. But we are more than willing to respond to any comments and questions then from the members. Thanks, Chair. Back to you.
Ms. Adams, you mean PAJA in terms of the Promotion of Administrative Justice Act?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Mr. Samar also would like to, his hand is up.
No, Chair, I just want to ask whether I can take down the presentation or do you want me to keep it on?
No, you can really take it down then, because also members, the presentation have been sent it them, and then you've presented it exactly the same way that is in that presentation. Honorable members, can I get an indication of members who would like to engage with the report, who would like to ask questions, points of clarity? I see Honorable Bosman, his hand is up. You may continue, honorable members. I will note others as they come and as they show interest.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, I would just like to get an understanding from the department in terms of what the cost of this legal challenge was, and whether how is that cost reflecting on the department's audit reports? Do they classify it as a cost that was absolutely necessary, and maybe the AG can also give input here? Or is that cost seen as sort of money that could have been used for something else in the department? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Honorable Bosman. Honorable Van Vesthuizen.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Huyshamer, and Chair, through you. I have 5 questions for now. The first one is, has Treasury retracted their circular in which the AG's position, which then in the meantime was thrown out in the court, was supported? So has the circular been retracted? The second one is, what would the implications have been should the AG's view been upheld? And by that I don't mean, then we would have had a qualified audit, etc. In practical terms, does that mean that then, for example, in future we would have to go out on tender for the kind of services that Casidra is rendering? Or what is the practical implications? Why did the Department of Agriculture, I almost want to say, stood its ground? The third one is, how unique is this situation or the relationship between the Department of Agriculture and Casidra? For example, transfers are a general thing in the public service. So what are the differences between the Department of Agriculture and Casidra, and, for example, the Department of Higher Education that transfers huge amounts to universities, for example? My fourth question is, can we be assured by the representatives of the Auditor General that future audits of the Department of Agriculture will be done in an even-handed way and not in a vexatious spirit or approach? A spirit of, our noses have now been rubbed and now, we are really going to come and look for dirt under your nails here in the Western Cape Department of Agriculture. I think it's important, Chair, that we get that assurance that the spirit will be one still of working together and helping each other, trying to take this country and the standards of accountancy in this country forward. And then the last question for now, Chair, is in terms of the dispute resolution mechanism, which I welcome. It sounds very good because I do know that in the past, people that were audited often found that the AG, they came down with quite a big hammer, and that you had very little recourse if you differed from the AG's staff. Would a third party be involved in trying to settle those disputes, or is it still the AG's word that will prevail, and you can only, I almost want to say, officially, appeal to the AG to reconsider their stance on certain accounting standards? Thank you, Chair.
Any other member? As I don't see any hand, just also some comments or questions and inquiry from my side. Maybe also both the AG and the department can really assist in this, because I think in spite of its controversy, the judgment is quite an interesting document, especially the presentation that has been put here. It's this judgment resulted in this present. It's kind of a highly academic, and therefore there can be quite a lot of lessons that can be learned out of it. For example, it talks a lot about modified cash standard and also the accounting standard boards. Now, I don't know, I just wanted to check whether are there any measure that are there any contacts that have been made by both the department and the AG with the accounting standard board, because again, I still maintain the issue of auditing is it's an audit matter. It should never have gone to court. I believe something like an institute of auditing, I think, should have been approached, but of course, in this case, it was not. I know we are trying to follow the strict prescripts of the law, but then I wanted to check whether has there been any involvement in the process of trying to resolve this dispute where the accounting standard board has been approached either by the AG or by the department, because this is really an accounting matter. And modified cash system, it's being used in other departments. I know for a fact that when we do get reports, but why has it just have to be unique on this case of the of CASIDRA and the Department of Agriculture? Now, also maybe coupled with which related to this question of the accounting standard board, I see in the presentation it's mentioned that the National Treasury has put measures in place to deal with the settlement. Is there any person maybe between the department as well as the AG who can kind of give us some idea whether has that process been finalized, or is it in place already? If anything happen, can that system kicks in to try and make sure that we are avoiding any recurrence of this in future? I'm going to stop there for now and maybe listen to responses. Maybe some of my follow-ups will come out from responses. I see Honorable Xhego's hand is up.
Yes, thanks, Chair. No, mine is just I'm partly covered by your last questions, but I just wanted to know in terms of the mechanisms, that which mechanisms that are there. I see it's noted that National Treasury has put in mechanisms in place. So what I want to understand is that what are those mechanisms that are in place, and also in a situation that those mechanisms are failing, are we likely to see the court route again, or what is going to happen? What would happen in a situation whereby those mechanisms are not effective? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Honorable Xhego. department and the AG.
Chair, thank you very much. I'm going to ask my CFO to respond to most of the questions, but perhaps I need to reiterate the point he made that going to court was not a choice of the department. We were left with no option, and given that AXA is a Chapter 9 institution, and the only time you could get a different view is by approaching the courts. And I think that is really what has brought us to where we are now. But maybe to respond briefly to the question that the Honorable Van der Westhuizen had raised as to what would have been the implications for us. I think the implications largely would have been that our efficiencies in terms of supporting or settling black farmers in this province would have been affected in a big way. But I think my CFO can also give much more details. And also Darrell Jacobs, who's also on the call and can also refer to issues around the drought support and so on and so forth. But without further ado, I want to, with your permission, Chair, that I ask my CFO to respond to questions raised by Honorable Bosman and those of Honorable Van der Westhuizen and yourself, Chair, and also Honorable Kweko, in that order, please. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, thank you. I'll start at the top. The very first one was a question about the cost. The cost was just around about overall over both of these. It was around just over 800,000 rand, if my memory serves me right. And although we got a cost, what do you call it, allocation? In other words, the judgment said it comes with cost, which we can get. In government, we have a funny way of doing that, because if we do get the cost, it actually go to the National Department of Justice. So we never see the money again. The National Department of Justice here. However, it goes back into government. Chair, so that is my first answer. Then Mr. Van der Westhuizen. Has NT retracted the circular? Yes, they have retracted the circular, and they've adjusted certain things, to stay also to stay within response of the judgments. The impact of access. Let me just read here. Yeah, if the HOD has quickly referred to that, Chair, I think I'm going to try and take the short route here. But the reason why we do what we do and sit in the process that we're sitting in is that we understand agriculture to be what do you call it, a set of biological systems. In other words, unfortunately, they don't stick to government's timeframes, and that is our big problem. And then with the MCS as opposed to GRAP, the MCS is a cash standard. In other words, you start and finish a year within a year, and the next year you start with a new budget and nearly a new business. And in an accrual environment, which everybody else but national and provincial governments are working, GRAP is also an accrual environment. I'm talking now about accounting. This can be better serviced, because if it rains in April, we need to plant in April in terms of wheat, for instance, that kind of thing. So we cannot always stick to the biological rules. That is why that your cash environment is a very difficult environment to support agriculture. So that was a big thing. The HOD has referred to that we lose a lot of efficiencies. It's because of that. Just one small example, perhaps, is if you have a drought now, and you have to give fodder now. At the end, if we did not have the accrual environment of Casidra and Hoortgro for that matter, at the end of a financial year, say at 31 March, whatever money was left, we have to pay back to let's call it to Treasury. That means 31 March, we still could have given a sheep fodder. On the 1st of April, we had to give back that money, and that money, if we do ask for a rollover, we will get back in between November and December. So that sheep must now kind of wait, for that period, which we all know is not a possibility. So we would have lost a lot of efficiencies, and by way of the small example, that was the problem that we are faced with. Chair, then how unique is that I don't think it's any more unique than any other transfer payment kind of environment. It is as unique as it is with Hoortgro. Casidra is for us in the accrual environment. That's why we transfer. The point is perhaps what is the definition of transfer? Can everybody say they stick to the definition of transfer? In other words, that unrequited part, that part where the department who makes a transfer doesn't get anything in return. If everybody can answer that question, why the transfer, then we are in transfer environment and not necessarily in supply chain environment. Chair, so that will be my answer to that one. The question was to the EXA about being even-handed, but I also actually want to put in from my side, Chair, the one thing we could, and I think they can be proud of it because I'm very proud of it, as this difference of opinion, because remember, this was actually a difference of opinion and a court gave us clarity. This difference of opinion never changed any of our working relationships. We are at this moment in the middle of an audit, and I think from our side, we can just say we get very good cooperation and understanding from the AG, and I would like to hope they feel the same way. So from our side, no animosity. I've never felt it, not even over these 5 years while we were busy with this. We've decided we know about it, but we park it until we get some clarity, because that's in the end what everybody wanted. Chair, the mechanism, I must admit, and perhaps that also confirms my previous point, we didn't need the mechanism yet. I know our provincial treasury and a couple of the departments actually did take up this mechanism. So hopefully from the AG side, they have more to say about this, because we don't know. We don't need these mechanisms every time. This is actually was the first time in our life that we, since I've been here, that we needed a mechanism. So last year and this year up to now, we didn't need any mechanism, and hopefully we won't. So hopefully the AG can give some more clarity in what the mechanism looks like and whether there is a third party involved or not. Chair, lessons learned. Well, everything was a lesson learned, but I think the biggest lesson learned is hopefully that we need to stick to the prescripts as hard as we can, and we need to make it work. Did we make contact with the ASB? No, we did not, and I will be surprised if the AG did for anything other than perhaps some grab explanations. Chair, it is just a fact that government at this moment, provincial and national, are not on the accrual system yet. That's why they can't be on grab. So we will have to wait until government is ready, us being part of government, for grab to be implemented. So up and until the ASB has written most of the grab prescripts, and I think it's been implemented the way I understand it with local government already. But we will have to wait our turn until we are ready, and it is being decided that the rest of government will also go on to grab. The NT mechanism, Chair, again, I think I have explained it a bit higher up, and again, there was a mechanism question on the NT. Chair, from where I'm sitting, I think I've answered all the questions, but if I did miss anything, please just tell me, and I will try and respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashik Ali.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to all the honourable members. Just Ashik Ali, Senior Manager at the Auditor General. So although I'm not the current Senior Manager for agriculture currently, that is Mr. Idle Blow is also on the MS Teams invite with us. I was the Senior Manager during the years 17-18 onwards to 2021. So I think just to respond to some of the points from the Auditor General's point of view, I think both the HOD as well as the CFO has done a good job to deal with a number of the matters. So with regard to the costs reflected, and we know that was with costs, and we're just not sure on how far in the process that is, as the CFO has indicated, but that is in process, and obviously from our side that would be a payment that would have to be made for the amount that the CFO has made, because the court judgment was with costs. In terms of, I think, the question was, how has that been reflected within the AFS, and I think that has been answered by the CFO itself. With regard to the next question around, whether the circular has been retracted, etc., and there was definitely a consideration. We must remember that National Treasury is essentially the custodian of the modified cash standard, and this is a standard that it's really only applicable to national and provincial departments, and they have definitely taken the court judgment into account. We have seen additional guidance being given to align some of the principles that was in the modified cash standard, to align it with some of the court judgment principles that have come out and that has been discussed within the presentation. So we have seen that additional guidance come out that has been taken into account. I think in terms of like the CFO was alluding to, in terms of the uniqueness, and as the honourable member did say, transfer payments is not unique only to the agriculture consider or Hoedkrow scenario. It is something that you will find at a number of other departments. And the considerations that we did and the consistent principles that we did look at was consistent amongst all the departments. It went through also thorough technical consideration for all the departments. However, we must remember that the different agreements that are in place at the different departments will differ. And we would have to then, what we did do is we had to take it into consideration based on the different agreements that are in place at the different departments, and we would then come to the conclusion at the stage on whether it was should be classified as a transfer payment or whether it should be goods and services. And I think in the case, one of the key things that we did look at, and I think nationally it was departments of agriculture that were mostly impacted by the technical review that happened at the time with regard to, and I think there was one of the strong motivations on why we did feel that it should be classified as goods and services, was that we were of the view that it did fall within the mandate of the departments of agriculture at the time, and obviously that has been further clarified by the judgment to look at the principal agent agreement. And as the presentation had stated, the key principle that then had to be looked at was whether there was a legal binding relationship then between the third parties and the principal itself. I think I'd have to also then fully agree with the CFO and the HOD sentiments around the working relationship. And I think that has been, and someone as a senior manager that was in the audit for all the years, I can only but agree to the CFO sentiments that there was an absolutely brilliant working relationship between the audit team as well as the department all fronts. There was never any conflict, and like the CFO mentioned, is that we acknowledged the disagreement. We treated it as an isolated event, and I don't think there was ever a spirit of any hint from our side that the audit was ever dealt with unfairly, or that there was any hidden agenda with regard to that. That's a commitment we give to all the honourable members. As a Chapter 9 institution, I think there will be cases where we will have independent view, and independence in what we do and how we do things is very important. It's really a key ethical requirement in terms of how we conduct the work that we do. And so we will find differences of opinion come up. And I think later on, as one of the last questions did ask is, what mechanisms are there in place to then make sure that we get to and close the loop with regard to dispute resolution. I think when it comes to, maybe we can just then go into the dispute resolution process. And one of the key learnings that we have found out of this whole process is that we can't really afford accounting matters to go to court. I think it needs to be dealt with regard to a very thorough and robust dispute resolution process. I know NT has, and we have had discussions with different stakeholders to take the lessons out of the court judgment, as well as to NT, and to say that we need to enhance the dispute resolution process so that we have accounting matters that get dealt with through this process, that we have all stakeholders buy in within the process. I think the key determination and one of the other key lessons with regard to the dispute resolution process is that it needs to be a process that deals with the matter timelessly. So although, at the time, we fully followed the dispute resolution process, which was to escalate the matter through National Treasury as the custodian of the modified cash standard. And we actually had the Accountant General involved in that, and it was a position paper was developed from that. But it was a process, and it's actually mentioned in the presentation, that actually took quite a long time to conclude through consultations and through the amount of thorough discussions, the robust discussions that needed to happen. So we were actually only in a position to reach a conclusion for the 16-17 audit in the next year, in May 17-18. And that just gives you a time view of how long it took to go through the process. So one of the key things I know that they are looking at is making sure that we enhance the processes to make sure that we get to a resolution so that we can still meet legislative deadlines. That is there so we can have sign-offs on time. And obviously I know from a scope point of view, one of the key concerns that have been raised in the past is that the effect and the knock-on effect that it does have on the oversight and the important oversight role that SCOPA has to do. And without obviously the audit report being timely concluded on, we can't really go on with the annual report tabling process and the oversight process. Then with regard to the next question around the academic discussion around MCS and the ASB, and I think the CFO has correctly explained that the modified cash standard is very, very specific to the national departments and the provincial departments only. And the reason why the provincial departments are not implementing GRAP, and the custodian for GRAP is obviously the ASB, and obviously the long-term vision from both the ASB and the National Treasury side is to eventually have the provincial departments and the national departments on GRAP as an accounting framework that they will report on. But one of the things that they've needed to do over the years, and they're continuously doing, is checking on the readiness of whether there are sufficient systems in place to implement an accrual system. And just to explain to the members what the difference between the GRAP accounting framework is and the modified cash standard is. The GRAP framework is basically a fully fledged accrual system, accounting system that is there, and the modified cash system has elements of where you are reporting cash. So you'll find that the statement of financial performance and statement of financial position is still being reported on the cash basis, which would not be the case in the GRAP framework because it's fully accrual. But then we do have disclosure notes as a readiness and as interim measure to prepare departments then to go onto accrual system that are prepared on the accrual basis. So it's basically a hybrid system between cash and accrual to eventually enable provincial departments and national departments to then align to the GRAP standards, but there would need to be sufficient systems in place. And only once National Treasury is sufficiently convinced that the department sphere is ready for that implementation, will they then prescribe the ASB accounting framework of GRAP to then be implemented. So that is something that is being continuously, and I hope that gives an oversight on the academic discussions around MCS and ASB and GRAP and why the GRAP standards are not being implemented. So for the last one, it's just the mechanisms that are in place, and I think we've dealt with this with regard to the dispute resolution process. I think they haven't fully completed the process by having a formalized document, but I'll also just have Sankita come in here. I see your hand up. Thanks.
Sangita, please go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you. Through you, Chair. Good morning once again to everyone. For the mechanisms for dispute resolution, from our side, we really did see this and agree with the way the department has couched it to say that it is not adequate for us to be able to now find ourselves ventilating accounting matters in court. So internally as an office, we've actually reflected and said from a dispute resolution process, there's a couple of things that we need to consider. And timeliness is one that Ashik referred to, but it's also around ensuring that we do our impartiality and our independence, and it's specifically related to decision making. So there is some processes that we are developing internally that once finalized, we'd be able to then also engage with and provincial government, the department, and with SCOPA, so that you understand what our mechanisms are. Now, when we talk about other dispute resolution processes, there is one that Treasury has in place. And I mean, as we know, they are the custodians of the prescripts. They are the custodians of the fact that they prescribe then the accounting framework with which a department or a public entity ultimately applies. So any of those aspects, I mean, us as an office, we are completely independent from that decision making. So there is a disputed guidance, disputed standard, and interpretation of a standard as well, and how it actually is falling practically. And I think we see this a lot happening in the compliance space as well. So that mechanism is in place. We are generally not party to that mechanism unless the Treasury wants specific input from us around some of our views. So we give that from an independent perspective. So I think there we must, I think it was important for me to mention that there is currently a process in place from Treasury's side, but we the last comment I wanted to make was just to support the CFO's view around our relationship. I think as an office, we do definitely pride ourselves on ensuring that we remain objective, we remain impartial through our processes. We continue to have good relationships. I think we've We internally do not, definitely do not take these processes personally. It is for the betterment and the better reporting of our auditees. And I think from all perspectives, we do want to give confirmation that we are here to apply any processes as fairly as possible. Honourable Chair, thank you.
Thanks very much, Sangita. Are there any further questions, follow-up, comments, or points of clarity from members or from any other participants? If there is nothing, then ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, let me make use of this opportunity to thank both the department as well as the Office of the Auditor General in the Western Cape for being available for this meeting and also for the constructive and fruitful discussions that we have had. I think now if there are no further questions from members, and then I think I can actually allow both the department and the AG to be excused so that we can continue with the business of the committee meeting. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair. Keep well.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Thank you, members. Bye.
There we go, honorable members. I just want to check whether are there any issues or resolution that you'd like to take out of the presentations or out of the discussions that we've had with both the department and the Auditor General. I think if there is none, then on a request that then we move on to the next item on the agenda. Mr. David.
Yes, Chairperson, thank you very much. Chair, is it fine if we flag the minutes of our last scope of meeting, Chairperson, just for consideration and adoption?
Yes, please.
No problem, Chair. I'm just going to, sorry, Chair, let me just flag this for the members quickly. Chair, let me just do this, Chair, please. Oh, yes, there we go. There we go, Chair. Chair, can everyone see a Chair?
Yes, we can see the first page.
Okay.
I think is it, yeah.
Okay.
Just put it like that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's attendance. Yes, thank you very much. I think thanks very much for that as well.
Yes, Chair. Chair, then it's just the resolutions, Chairperson. 7.1.1, 7.1.2, Chair.
Yes. Yeah, that's confirmed. Yeah, that's exactly
Yes.
what we were.
Perfect. And then it's basically just for you to sign, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Any proposals and seconder for the adoption of the minutes?
I'm happy to support.
Thank you very much. Any seconders? I suppose the seconders will really be people who were present, Mr. David.
Yes, Chair. Even Chair, it's fine if you yourself, if you support the Chair.
I support that. Thank you very much.
No problem, Chair. Chair, then basically, Chair, after that, Chair, it's basically just the APEC.
Are there any new developments you have from your sides, communication? I think there is going to be this Council of Delegates on Friday.
Yes, Chair. That's the only matter, Chair, that's on the for APEC, Chair.
Okay, I think in that also there were honorable members that indicated their interest in attending. I know Honorable Maseko indicated that, obviously, with myself. And then I know Honorable Nkondlo as well as Honorable America also indicated an interest to attend.
There we go, Chair. Yes, you are quite correct, Chair. I've forwarded to everyone, Chairperson. So so the members can then just log into the meeting, Chair. It's a virtual meeting, Chairperson, this Friday. It starts at 11 o'clock, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. Then I think then if there are no further items, I think that was the last item, Mr. Davids. No?
Correct, Chairperson.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Then that actually brings us to the end of the meeting, honorable members. Thank you very much for your attendance. Highly appreciated. The meeting is closed.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair. Well done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thanks.